Welcome to Building Better Worlds, where we celebrate voices from around the world that are helping to forge a shared and abundant Web3 future. I'm your host, Julian Guderley, creator of the Green Planet Blue Planet podcast. And for this episode, I'm here with Andreea Ion Cojocaru, the co-founder and CEO of NUMENA. Welcome to this episode, Andreea.
Hi, very nice to be here tonight.
Yeah, so let's hear a bit more about NUMENA. It's an award-winning interdisciplinary design organization, and you're currently developing creative VR architectural environments. And I think you're the best one to guide us a bit deeper in this topic, and maybe tell us a little bit about the background of NUMENA and how you came to found it, and what you're currently developing there.
Yeah, definitely. So I am trained as a traditional brick and mortar architect, but I've always had a passion for programming and tried to kind of combine these two fields. I couldn't quite find a creative way of combining them when I was in school and in the early part of my professional career, until I found VR. So when I stumbled upon VR, I realized that to produce VR apps and AR apps, you need two things. You need to be able to model environments, and you need to be able to code so you can add behavior on top of those environments or inside those environments. And at the time, I couldn't quite find a company that was doing exactly this. And I had to start my own. So that's, in a nutshell, how NUMENA started and what it's about. It's about doing architecture and programming through VR.
Do you want to maybe share a little bit about the impact that creating for VR has in the relationship to traditional architecture, which is your background?
Yeah, traditional architecture is traditional in many ways. A lot of architects love to design in the way in which they were taught, and sometimes means making sketches and paper model, and that's wonderful. I still do those things myself sometimes, but it also means that a lot of companies are not so receptive to new technologies. They're a little bit scared, and it's not necessarily because they cannot retrain their staff. It's because being creative is a very personal kind of experience. And once you've learned how to control a medium that helps you express that creativity, so in the case of an architect, the pencil or the cardboard model, it's very, very hard to change that. It's way deeper than just retraining or learning a new skill. It's basically rediscovering your creativity from scratch. So the relationship right now between VR and architecture is strained in that these architects generally, or most architecture offices generally, look at VR as a new way or the latest way of visualizing their buildings, which is great. Of course, it does a much better job at visualizing than traditional renderings. You can actually take clients inside the building before it's done. But our main interest at NUMENA is to actually introduce VR in that initial creative part of architecture. So the tool we're making is about putting architects in virtual reality when there's no building yet, there's nothing, and having them take that first creative step in developing those spaces inside VR at one-to-one scale, rather than with pen and paper and a sketch. And we're seeing two types of reactions, right? The older architects are generally a little bit more reticent, but we're seeing also a lot of people and a lot of young architects getting extremely excited about this possibility that really didn't exist a few years ago.
Yeah, exactly. It totally didn't exist even just a few years ago. And so you're basically building a tool that allows people to create a whole new level of spatial experience. Maybe if you can share in your own words, share a little bit about your own excitement about these spatial experiences. And I'm curious to hear where in you that spark started to happen, where you're like, this is where we can bring people together to build, new worlds, if they're in digital or with brick and mortar?
Yeah, absolutely. The first aha moment I had was when I was testing the early versions of this tool, and I found myself making decisions and designing spaces that surprised me. So it was like being there at real scale and moving walls around and moving windows around and reacting to that real size of architectural elements, which is such a drastically different experience than when you are sketching and still imagining the building in your head, right? Because you're sketching on paper, but you have to reconstruct the actual building that you're designing in your head. But not having to go through that process of translation and being able to grab a 5 by 5 meter wall and drag it around led to these unexpected designs, these unexpected ideas, and I was quite blown away by that. So it's not just that this tool allows you to do things faster and easier, allows people who maybe don't even have a traditional education in architecture to still go in and try to design spaces because it's so easy. But it even opens up the possibility of a new type of architecture. So these tools could lead towards physical, real buildings that might look different. So that was quite that was quite surprising and incredible, and something that we couldn't even imagine when we started on this path.
That is exciting. The idea that someone who's never been an architect could actually use a program to start playing and shaping a spatial experience, yeah, that's a whole new horizon, a whole new frontier. And so, if you were to take us into maybe a project or two of yours that are currently under development or that are already completed, that either one, I'd love to, hear from you about a very specific project, something that's as pragmatic as we can make it in this podcast episode.
Yeah, definitely. I have a good story that has to do with VR and architecture, and it actually comes from the medical field. So that's just to show people the breadth of possibilities, right? Not just in VR, but at the intersection of VR and architecture. So we had a medical company, a very large medical company, come to us with a problem. They wanted a VR application, but they also wanted to solve a problem. This has to do with what are called SSIs. SSI stands for surgical site infections. So it's a very technical term, but in a nutshell, even in countries that have a lot of resources at their disposal, like Germany, a huge number, like a double-digit percentage of people who undergo surgeries get a surgical site infection. And there have been an incredible amount of studies and data collection and data processing and methodologies and workshops designed to identify the causes of this problem and then test possible solutions. And this number would not budge. So this number is around 20% actually, and that's of course huge. And a lot of people even die from these surgical site infections, even if the surgery has been successful. So the company came to us and said, look, we've tried a lot of things. We've tried to write articles about this. We've made beautiful diagrams. We've used all the media at our disposal. We want to use VR, and maybe that opens up some new way. And we looked at the problem, and as architects, we said, maybe the issue is with the fact that when you go and make these diagrams, you're actually taking a problem that has to do with the messiness of reality, and you're abstracting it. You're abstracting it into a set of rules. But actually, and then people get stuck when it comes to applying the set of rules back into the messiness of an actual hospital. So when we looked at the list of possible causes, we saw things like the room that you're in requires you to do certain things, and if you're in another room, you're supposed to disinfect your hands with another solution, and if you are coming from this room and going into this other room, that's yet another potential cause. So we said, look, this is not about making a list of rules. This is about helping people deal or understand the messiness, understand reality. So we went to VR and we tried to make a virtual hospital that is as real as possible. So we had animated characters, we had voice actors. We did everything to make it messy, not clean, not clear, right? Because that's what a hospital ward is. And then we gave people feedback as they were making mistakes. So we weren't kind of giving them instructions. We were letting them do the wrong thing, and then give them a feedback. And we've gotten amazing feedback on this from people all over the world that are part of the medical system that have been working with hospitals in trying to solve this problem, and in using this as a training tool in hospitals. So for me, it's a story, one, about how the messiness of reality plays a role, and how it is hard to clean it up sometimes with traditional tools and traditional diagrams, and how VR can not only help us be better and faster, like what I said before, it can actually start to offer solutions to problems that we actually were resistant to solutions, to traditional solutions that we've had so far.
There's like a whole other level of awareness we can gain when we look at things in a virtual, if I understand you right. Very interesting. What kind of responsibilities do you think we have to face, be in integrity with, as we're designing Web3, as we're building virtual spaces?
Oh, that's a very difficult question that has no clear and simple answer. I'll try to give it a shot.
Let's give it a shot together. Yeah.
I believe deeply that technology changes, but we are very slow at becoming aware of how we are being changed. And it took us decades, right, to start to fully understand how the heavy use of social media is leading to many changes at the personal level. I believe VR also has huge potential for changing people as individuals, changing how they think, changing their behaviors. And this sword can and probably will cut both ways. So I believe it's important that we keep asking the right questions, and that we keep supporting people who are starting to do research in this field, who are starting to ask, how would the heavy use of VR influence a person? How young is too young for VR? How will the use of virtual avatars, who might be humanoid, might not even be humanoid, change how we perceive our physical body? So all of these are absolutely monumental questions that need to be in front of us every day, even if an individual company or studio by themselves might not have all the information required today to find the answers.
Yeah, those are open questions that we want to keep asking. So we continue to find the sense making and find these answers together. So maybe on the other side of the spectrum, then, Andreea, for you personally, if you were to go to the nature side, or rather the technology side for a moment with me here, what is one of your favorite pastimes in Mother Nature?
The sea. Anything that has to do with the sea. I was born on the seaside, and I love salty bodies of water.
Beautiful. Yeah, I can totally relate. Even as I'm having this conversation with you, I'm sitting far away from the sea, but I can feel the smell of the ocean. And so just to get a bit deeper with you here and hear more of your own perspectives, if we were to, take the word purpose and kind of dig a bit deeper together, like what is purpose for you, and then how did you connect to, designing spatial experiences as your personal, raison d'être?
Purpose for me is helping people be in control of their own transformation. I believe we change no matter what. I believe we are influenced on a daily basis by everything. That's kind of how I think of human nature. And I believe technology and all sorts of currents in society are fighting not just for our attention, but fighting for a space in our minds and fighting for the ability to change a little bit, change us a little bit, or change us a little bit more, even if it's just changing the kind of opinion we might have about something to changing bigger things, right? To changing what we do, to changing what we decide to buy or how we decide to perceive life. And I hope we will be able to create technology that is more transparent in how it does that. I don't believe we say, hey, we're not, I don't believe it's as easy as saying we're not collecting any data, for example. Even if that doesn't happen, that the continuous use of that technology will continue to change you. And I'm hoping to build applications that are transparent and that somehow put that power of transformation to the users.
I'm totally with you with, when it comes to transparency of data. I think it's curious to go down this rabbit hole a little bit here. So who in in your own words, you said giving the control back to the user in that sense. So at least that's what I heard. So in your own words, like when it comes to collecting data, what do you believe is the path forward? Is that data in hands of the user, of the individual, or that data in hands of corporate, possibly even governmental interest?
I think the starting point is to make that collection of data optional, to allow people to say, I don't want that data to be collected, period. And I'm willing to deal with the consequences. Maybe the consequences, okay, then that product is not free, or you have to pay a high subscription. And then the next step is to make sure that people who do consent truly understand what they're consenting to. Because my default opinion is not that everyone who says they're okay with data being collected are wrong. Perhaps they're not. And in some cases, it is okay, actually, if the data is being collected. We just need to understand how it will be used. And we need to understand that everyone is on board with that.
Yeah, let's continue to develop that world together, because it really takes this transparency to design healthy tools, in my opinion. And so thank you so much for those answers and for taking us a bit deeper into the world of NUMENA. Maybe I have one last question for you for right now. So if you think back as your earliest childhood memory, do you remember what you wanted to do, what you wanted to build in this world?
How far back should I go? Like the absolute the first thing I wanted to be when I was gonna grow up, when I was a child, was a ballerina. That absolutely did not work out for me. And the second thing I wanted to do was be a painter. So that's quite close, actually, to what I do. So and I still actually paint as a hobby, but creating spaces and architecture and even developing the kind of app that we're working on is very, very, very creative. So that part worked out.
You're painting in a different kind of way, right? And you're painting environments and experiences for people. Well, if you have anything else you want to share, or any call to action, or anywhere where people can, connect with you and connect with your projects, feel free to share.
I would love to connect with people mostly on Twitter. I use LinkedIn quite a lot, but Twitter is where I post and say things that I am careful not to say in many contexts. That's the one place where I allow myself to take some liberties. So people engage quite a lot with these more out of the box, unorthodox tweets. And I love that conversation. I love reading all sorts of reactions. And I welcome people interested in these kind of topics to join some of those conversations and maybe share their own unorthodox thoughts about VR and where things are going.
And let's build a beautiful, and as you said, Andreea, transparent Web3 future together.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me tonight.